this is working, right? I hope everybody can hear me, right? In the beginning, I think there can be various ways of looking at things. So, can everybody hear me, right? Uh, Hello everyone, welcome. And today, what we're going to do is we're going to look into how to prepare for UPSC in the age of quarantine, right? What challenges that you might have, we'll discuss that, and that's going to be our major focus. That what challenges we might face. That is one. Uh, the other is, I think, a lot of questions can come from your side. What has changed in UPSC? Because for the first time ever, so UPSC, if you when you start thinking about this exam, right, or any other competitive exam, this year even areas such as like getting into IIT, getting into AIMS, any competitive exam, it was expected that it would be delayed, and we had clarification, right, by the MOS PMO, that UPT, right, Jitendra Singh, and he talked about the fact that after third they might have to reschedule UPSC and SSC this year, and whether that would be something that will affect you or not, that is another thing that will come. The other thing is, how do you adjust to this? How do you maintain your motivation despite the fact that you are now facing such a huge challenge? That's something that I would like to talk to you all about. Now, first of all, I think let's start talking about what challenges you would face. Now, all of us, right, in case, let's say we are in final year or we are planning to prepare for UPSC. So, for the first is that those kind of people. So, I think I want to prepare for UPSC next year or next to next year. So, let's say I'm giving myself 1 year or 1.5 or 2 years, right? Let's say for preparing. Now, how do I handle that? Considering that I am now sitting at home. I cannot go to Delhi. Even going to Delhi and staying at a place like old Rajinder Nagar, old Mukherjee Nagar becomes a lot more dangerous than it was before. Previously, also there were challenges. A lot of people used to get sick when they used to stay in Delhi. It used to be extremely congested. It was tough staying there. Although on the other hand, some people did like it. So both ways. So some people liked it, some people disliked it, but there were challenges anyhow when you stay outside your house. So that's the first thing that I would say, that you might not be able to go to Delhi in case, at least for some time, right? So let's say COVID is expected till to last. Let's say we're going to have lockdown is going to get over by on 3rd of May. Let's hope for that, right? And then after that, we can think of thinking, right, as if we can think of some kind of normalcy by Diwali. So the question becomes is that how do I plan myself for the next 6 months, right? How do I track myself, my prep, etc., etc. Now, what you can do, I would suggest, like all of you, right? What should you do is that first of all, you should have a very clear idea about your targets, right? Okay, so which books are you supposed to read? So you should have the book list ready with you. You should have all the material. These is a lot of material is online. The only two things I think a lot of people would need is a laptop and a printer. Okay, I always say a printer is a must when you prepare for UPSC. So let's say you're preparing for history for the time being. Let's say, so as you know, GS, there are 4 papers, and there's prelims, which is objective type. There is mains, which is subjective, and there's interview, which is you having a discussion, right, with people who are really experienced in their various walks of life. So when you prepare for prelims, right, the focus is actually having a lot of factual information, trying to remember as much factual information as there is, right? So one is 2 portions. You normally like to divide UPSC into, so history, geography, etc., right? Indian polity, economics, environment, international relations, current affairs, and then CSAT. Okay, right? So how do you tackle that? Okay. Further, now the question becomes current affairs. Now this kind of changes for us. Okay. So now, how normally, what we do, we normally stop preparing for current affairs 1 month before the exam. So should I not, should I want, so things like that are also to be considered. So what you're supposed to do for supposedly somebody starting out preparing, I would suggest that what you do is that pick up the book list. So I think that is available, right, even on a website and also in various other places. So make a 30-day plan, let's say for history. So let's say art and culture. So you want to complete the fine arts book plus Nitin Singhania plus Spectrum, right? Then ancient and medieval lets you allocate. So you keep on allocating days for it. So how many days would you like to give for that? So let's say you decide that for art and culture or something like that, you like to put something like 15 days when you go doing it for the first time, and for the second time you allocate 5 days. So always do like this: allocate 15 for the first and then 5 for the, so 1/3 of the time. So whatever you have done something, the revision or the second time when you're doing it, it should be 1/3 of the time. Okay, this should be pre-decided what time you will be taking. Then a topic is only completed when you have read all the 3 books, that is all the relevant books, or the relevant notes are read. So if any notes online and etc. That all the previous year questions, mains and prelims, both have to be done. Sectional test has to be given, and revision notes have to be made. So 5 steps we say that these are necessary in case you want to prepare for prelims. So read the relevant books, read the relevant notes, like class notes, whatever you have made, or wherever you are. All the previous year questions are done, and then sectional test should be given, and a revision note should be made. Okay. Now, obviously, the question is, so where can I get the sectional test, etc. Obviously, we can talk about that later. But the idea is that okay, you should first allocate time, and then revision time has to be 1/3 of that. Okay, so let's say for ancient and medieval, you say that I would require something like 25 days. So around 1/4 of that you would require for revise. So something like 4 to 6 days you can take for revision. Same for modern. Let's say modern days, modern would take something like 40 days to complete. So again, you say 1/4 of that, 10 days to revise modern, right, and so on. To go like that, okay, make a plan like this. So this kind of plan has to be made, and this has to be made in sequence. Okay, right. So this is how I would like all of you to think about preparing for prelims. Now, the idea is it's going to be a lot more self-motivating. And see, the biggest challenge while preparing for for UPSC in quarantine is that you're sitting at home. Okay, your parents do not understand what does it mean to prepare for UPSC. They believe in 9 to 5 jobs. Okay, if they have jobs, they believe in having weddings, they believe in watching time, they want to spend time with you, and so on. Okay, now this is not something that a UPSC candidate should do or will have time to do. Okay, you cannot go with your mother to shop very occasionally, etc., etc. Okay, so your isolation is not just with the people outside, it is with also the people inside your house. Okay, so that's there. uh, so that's something that I think you need to make a daily timetable, you need to make a weekly timetable, okay, and you need to make a bi-monthly or a monthly timetable and a half yearly timetable. So 4 timetables have to be made, okay, by you when you're preparing at home. Okay, now what are the other challenges? So a lot of you will have congestion of space at home, right? You might not have a very big area where you can sit and study. That's something that I would say would affect a lot of you when you're preparing, right? You'll have to adjust. Okay, so the argument is, even if in sitting in bathroom you can study, you should study. Okay, so that's one way of looking at things. The other is that you need to stick to your targets, whatever it might be. Okay, right. Now when let's say you're studying right at home, so how does it work out? So what kind of time frames you have? So remember, you'll hear all sort of noises, right, happening all around you. So thing is you ignore them, but at home it's very difficult to ignore. So one thing you have to actually have is a lot of headphones and ritualization. So one thing which I normally say when you're preparing or studying, right, there's something known as ritualization, which I always say. So remember, before you do any yagna in Hinduism, we have this concept of having some mantra. So people speak the Gayatri mantra, right, or right, doing something like that. So how do you motivate yourself? How do you encourage yourself to study despite the fact that you might not be really happy studying at that place? But normally what I encourage all my students to do is have some ritual right before you start studying. So before, when you start and when you end, both times you should be having some ritual. So speaking the Gayatri mantra would work, chanting some shlok from Bhagavad Gita works, even cribbing about some people you hate works. Okay, right? It's a ritual. Remember this. So all the people you want to prove yourself to, you can actually remember them and then start preparing. The other ritual which I normally suggest is that you should basically, uh, I say, when you wake up in the morning, it's very difficult to motivate yourself. कि यार आज क्यों पढ़ना है? Why don't I take a break today? Especially when the exam is, I don't know when, right? Even if I'm taking the exam this year, I don't know whether it's in August, whether it's next year, right? So the argument obviously is, one is the ritualization. The other is, as soon as you wake up, what I used to do during my prep was I used to pick up the old papers. Okay, so when you solve a few objective type questions of any subject, you tend to feel excited. Okay, that I don't know this, I don't know that, so I'm curious to go through them. Some people have different rituals. One of my friends, she used to prefer reading the newspaper, right? And she used to read for like a couple of hours before she used to start to study something else. Okay. So the argument is, you all need some rituals every day before you start preparing. You need to create a habit while preparing. So that's one there. So the one of the questions that we have is that I feel too lazy when I study. Right, try to study during quarantine, especially considering the fact you have no activity. So normally, what we suggest is that try to exercise a bit, go out, have a walk, right, then come back and then study. Or always have a morning walk before preparing. A lot of people, all of my friends, right, while preparing, I know that she used to run at the Sukna Lake the whole, front and back, at least a few times in the evening, right? So any kind of physical activity is still required, I would say. So I think it's got to do with your lethargy has got to do with the lack of physical activity. So playing with a football can help. So if you have a football at home, maybe you can play with it a sometime. A lot of us are cricket fans. A lot of us like to have do bowling. So do that before you start studying. So do something for some time, right? So it's when you start playing, don't start playing for like an hour or so, right? Play for 10-15 minutes, and then obviously it's supposed to like come back and now study, right? Uh, then the other thing has to be, then when you're studying, right? You have to remember that your concentration levels, right, during quarantine might not be the same, because you're distracted. You're thinking, okay, how many cases today? Every day, we're having a record. Okay, how will I get my food? Right, some your father, mother, etc. There's so many house chores happening. Ghar pe safai kaun karega, and all that is also happening. So again, this is an issue. I definitely agree. But if you can actually, standardize. So we normally say in public administration, we have something called programmed decisions and unprogrammed decisions. Okay. So what are programmed decisions? Programmed decisions is that, okay, these are the things that I have to do, and I know that these have to be done. So when I wake up, I have to have a bath, I have to brush my teeth. Okay. So make that routine. So, the laziness actually comes from not getting ready every day. Okay, so when you're like, so the ritual of getting ready for a class is also very important. Okay, so the reason the person feels lazy during quarantine is the fact that he thinks that he doesn't have to get ready, so he's not going anywhere. So there's no need to have a bath, there's no need to brush my teeth, there's no need to get ready, there's no need to press my clothes. So all those things actually are rituals, and they make you ready to now, okay, now we'll be working. Now, without those rituals, obviously your productivity will reduce. Hence, in the same way, you need some ritualization. Think about the fact that, okay, what's the difference between an online class and an offline class? Okay, so in an online class, you can have a Razai class, right? You can sit in your Razai and study. Okay, or your concentration level can lag, and sir will never guess it. Okay, even in Delhi, let's say you have the people 800 class, it doesn't really matter. They really can't point out if you are not concentrating enough. But the idea is that you did wake up in the morning, okay, right? That's what they're relying on. They're relying on the fact that you have come here, you paid such a huge fees. You relied on the fact that you worked so hard, right? You dropped some, lakhs of rupees here, plus you were having a, opportunity cost of not working somewhere else where you would earn some money at least, right? If not a lot, okay. So those kind of, things you have done. So that is the ritualization that you have done when you're going to Old Rajendra Nagar or Mukherjee Nagar or any coaching center in India for that matter, right? Maybe it's in Bangalore, or maybe it's Hyderabad, or anywhere. So when you wake up and you basically tend to, have this concept that okay, I have to study today, I have to do something. Now that is what leads to effectiveness, your productivity. And you can see a lot of how cricket players do it, right? How MS Dhoni would have a different ritual. Sachin Tendulkar always to adjust his leg guard right before when you start batting. Everybody has how a batsman put right. So bowler also have marks his run up and so on. What are all those things? They're rituals, if you try to understand that. In the same way, you need to create your rituals, okay, when you're studying for in quarantine. Okay, now the question can be, what can be those rituals? Obviously that can be something that we can discuss. These rituals can be anything. These can be even putting 10, having 10 push-ups. It can be actually dancing to a song. It can be listening to a song, right? A repeated song, right? So there's a movie called The Invictus, right, in which before a match, right, so Nelson Mandela talks to the captain of the South African team, that's Springboks, and he says, "How do you inspire people?" He says, "Sometimes it's very difficult to inspire, right? When you have to ask them to do something that they really don't believe that they themselves can do." So he says, a song sometimes helps. So in the same way, some people like to listen to a song. So keep a song which motivates you. That would be something that I would always accept. That try to have some kind of a ritual when you start and when you end. Okay, remember when you used to have in morning school assembly. Okay, so what does that school assembly? We hated it, right? We hated the fact we had to stand in the sun. But what it did was it kind of, everybody was suffering, right, in the heat. So when you came back inside, right, in the classes, obviously you took a breather. But definitely after that, you were on it, like, okay, now we have to study. Okay, so definitely you can say that that is one way of doing things. Any other questions you might have, right? I think if you have any questions, we would love to take them. um, any questions you might have, right? You're saying something. Okay, so let's try to talk about how to make your timetable, right? That's something that I think all of you might like to understand. Okay, so what is the basic idea behind having this timetable? And okay, so normally what I ask my students to do is, don't make a timetable, right? Make a timetable when you want to relax. Okay, when you want to watch Netflix, when you want to have a coffee, when you want to call up your best friend and talk about how miserable your day was preparing, right? Anything like that. So that is the basic idea I would like you to do, right? So don't make a timetable, or first of all, make a timetable of not studying. Okay, and anytime you're not obviously you know you know enjoying or relaxing, you should be studying. Now the next obviously phase is, okay, so okay, I am, except for the time I'm actually relaxing, I'm studying all the time. But how do I improve my quality and my productivity? Okay, so first is, we normally say, okay, increase your time frame. So let's say you're studying for, let's say, 4 hours. So I'll give you the story of my friend. So he started preparing, right? He left his job and he started preparing. He was from Kozhikode, right? And he came and he started preparing. So he asked me, so kya kaise kare? So I said, yeah, start to kar. मतलब, let's try to put in. चल आज चलते हैं लाइब्रेरी, देखते हैं कितने घंटे पढ़ेंगे. So he started studying. He sat at 12, obviously full of arrogance, right, from an IIM, and thinking like, मैं तो फोड़ दूंगा, right? After 3-4 hours, he was like sick of studying the same book, right? He came out and he's like, आज तो कुछ नहीं होगा. So he went back home. Next day again he came, right? Tried to get some crux of things, that okay, how many hours should I study, what amount of time I should study. So he tried to improve his hours from 3 hours, then to 3.5, then he basically 3 hours 40 minutes, and sometimes less than that, 2.5. He kept on fluctuating between to the 2 to 4 5 hours mark, right, for the first 1 month, right? And okay, so then without preparation, what he did, he took some state exam, and that time Haryana Civil Services exam was there, so he took that. So what he when after he thought that he had studied enough, so he went there, took the prelims. He unluckily the paper was tough, so he didn't clear, right? But what he did, he as soon as he saw that, okay, what were the lacunas, right? So as soon as you realize that this is the topic, these are the topics I have not studied, right? So he's very quickly able to head back and analyze what he hadn't studied. Okay, and then with that he actually put a timetable. Okay, these are the topics I have to study, this is the time frame I have, and okay, I need to put these many hours. So he increased his hours, okay, from my external factor. So he was fluctuating between 2 to 5 hours. Then he realized, okay, I maybe need to put something like 5 to 8. So he shifted to that. Then he shifted to, when the exam came closer, it became very easy to shift to something like 10 to 15 hours. The variation was there, but anything above 10 hours is there, right? So if somebody asks me how much you need to study for UPSC, I say you need to study for 1 year. From 8 to 8, 12 hours per day approximately. Some 8 to 10 hours, right? 8 to 12 hours is enough, right? With quality and productivity. The key is consistency. You cannot have holidays. You cannot go for marriages. You cannot take a break. You cannot fall sick, which is pretty cruel in the era of COVID. But try not to get COVID. That's one thing I would definitely say. Okay. Then this is the idea is that if you do something very slowly and you have some kind of a feedback loop, right? So that really helps. The other methodology is by a very famous thinker, right, called Andres Ericsson, and he talks about something known as deliberate practice, right? He says that you need to obviously motivate yourself, and that's the ritualization, which we say. The other thing he says that you need to make a schedule, and you need to have a focused target. Okay, that this is what you're targeting. So that is what I'm saying. So let's say we're targeting history for the next 60 days, right? And we have 5 topics in that. So we have ancient, medieval, culture, right, and modern, post-independence, and for history. So let's say we are approximately giving 10 days each, and then 10 days for revision, right? So how do I go for that? And per day, how many chapters I have to read, and what chapters are reading? You make that timetable for yourself. Now, once you've done that, right? So the first day you started preparing, obviously you're not gonna. There's always going to be a curve like this. So you go up like this, and then you will actually plateau out a bit. Okay, that is what's going to happen. So you're going to increase your hours, right? So you will first day, let's say, even if so a lot of people are really excited on the first few days that they're able to study about 10-15 hours, but the next day it actually down, right, to 4 hours or sometimes 2 hours, and sometimes they don't even study. And a lot of people in India are disaster managers. So like right now we have COVID, right? So they are lovely disaster managers. So Indian civil servants are the best people in the world who can handle disaster. Okay, so right, so that's why I think we're doing so well in COVID. Right, we are very, very poor when we are implementing normal functions of our lives. Okay, in the same way, so before the exam, right, give the book to the person, right, say that tomorrow is the exam of Indian history, ye lo kitab kal padh ke aani hai. I pretty much guarantee you the person will be able to do it. But if you tell him that ये एक महीने में पढ़नी है, तो I'm telling you, भाई बिल्कुल नहीं होगी. हो सकता है कि महीने के बाद भी किताब नहीं पढ़े. So that is the real problem. That even after a year, right, he might not have read that book. And that is the reality, and this is true for anybody. Okay, but if you tell them, yeah, okay, tomorrow you have to read this book, and tomorrow I'll take a test for this, he might actually end up doing that. So Indians are lovely disaster managers. So the consistency is the challenge in UPSC because of that. So I normally encourage everybody to study something like, let's try to do something like 6 to 8 hours every day, and try to increase not more than 20 minutes or 10 minutes per day. So let's say you did 6 hours yesterday, so do 6 hours 10 minutes. Okay, and ideally across time, across the 3 to 6 months, your timetable should be 8 to 8. Okay, so morning 8 o'clock you should start. Okay, so this 8 to 8 can be at night also, I don't care. So morning 8 o'clock you start. Okay, so from 8 to 11, that's a first lot, right? You can do your newspaper or whatever you like to do. From 11 to 11:30 you study any kind of cup of tea and revise the newspaper or something like that, or look at some answer writing thing. 11:30 to 2 again, now you start your first lot. You can look at history, polity, whatever topics you like to go through. 2 o'clock you have lunch, right? Or right, you can even have at 1, depending upon when you like it. After that, the next slot from 2 to 5 or from 3 to 6, you are studying, right, hardcore history or something excites you, because after lunch it'll be a little boring. So you better not study history. Try to study something more interesting, right? Something which excites you. At 6, after that, you should actually hang up and start solving some objective type questions if possible. Use the breaks, the tea breaks, for some objective type questions if possible. Try to make sure that you're still studying whenever you're not. Other than after that, 8 o'clock, you just stop. After that, don't study at all. Okay, go back, sleep, talk to your friends, revise. The memory thing I used to do is that uh, mm, when I used to think about it, this memory thing trick was that I used to try to remember whatever I've read. I used to close my eyes, right, and I used to just sit in my bed and try to remember what all I have read the whole day. Okay, so that is something of a trick. So I used to check whether my concentration level or my revision or whatever I did was correct or not. And sometimes I used to wake up and actually study or revise a bit, but still, it was a very good exercise. And in the morning, I knew what I wanted to do. Okay. The other thing is, I should be very clear tomorrow morning what I want to do today. Okay, so let's look at a question now, right, from one of our viewers. So Jaya Prasad, right? So Daya Prasad, she's saying, "Sir, I will be appearing in 2022. How can I utilize my college days efficiently?" So, Jay, first question, I have a few questions for you. What are your college timings and where are you studying? So, because this question really varies with which college are you, right? What are your college timings? So, whether you're doing BA, BCom, right? Do we have 9 to 5 or do you have 8 to 5? So, if you're doing engineering, it's a little different, right? Okay, so the schedule you might have. Okay, but the one thing which I can talk about, people who are still in college and preparing, uh, one thing I would encourage you to study static portions. Okay, so do not touch current affairs at all. Okay, don't touch it at all. I think it's better to study, right, Indian society. It's better to study ethics. It is better to study constitution, study hardcore constitution only, right? It's better to study history, it's better to study geography, it's better to study sociology. Don't waste your time touching current affairs at all. A lot of you love current affairs, but don't even touch it, right, if you're in college. Okay, start current affairs only after you have completed your static portion. So after you've done history, right, after you've done geography, after you've done Indian society, after you have done constitution, after you have covered ethics, right, environment, right, can still be covered, I would still say, but go for areas which are easier, which will be still be relevant to you. So history is not going to change, whatever might happen. Even if your son wants to give history, like 50 years down the line, or your grandson wants to give history 50 years down the line, that would still work, right? So that's something is there. So Jay is saying college timings is from 9 to 5, and you're doing BSc, right? So Jay, obviously, when it was 9 to 5, it's going to be tough. Uh, right, other than actually putting like 3 to 4 hours per day, that's maximum you can get. So I think I would suggest 2 hours per day, right, and go for static topics like history. That is one thing that I would like you to think about. Then go for so the weekdays, right, have to be little relaxed, and your weekends have to be a lot more focused. So weekends you need to utilize and try to get as much output, like get 6 7 8 hours per day, right? So 6 hours to 8 hours on the weekends. Initially, even if you're able to get 4 to 5, that's fine, but on the weekends try to sit and go through the NCRTs. So personally, I would say complete the NCRTs, right, per se. That is my major viewpoint on people who are still in college and preparing. The other thing is that you are in quarantine. You might not go to college for a very long time. This is the time actually to utilize, to maximize your study, right? Nobody's going to ask you if you're sitting at home and studying something, right? You can always claim that, sir, I was too scared to study or something like that. Okay. Any other questions? Right? Any other questions? Any of you might have, right? Mm, any follow-up questions? Yeah, right. I think if we are here, why not? Uh, what are your various aspirations? Why do you think you want to do an IS? Uh, why do you think this is important, right, to you? Okay, so we were talking about also Jaya is responding, but let's talk about the next idea behind deliberate practice. And the idea is that when you're preparing, right, you need to make yourself a little uncomfortable. Your goals have to be a little uncomfortable. So when I say take this book and read it, and get back to me in a week and finish Go Chen Leong, let's say for the matter for geography. Now the argument behind that is, I'm actually not thinking you'll complete it, but let's say if you do, it's wonderful. But even if you don't, right, you would have tried, and from that you would kind of know that how much effort you can put. Okay, right, indirectly that's a criteria set of how much effort or how much effort you can put. So that is a very good way of checking your motivation level, right? Like I gave one of my students, I gave him al basham to read, right? He said he was in first year in college in BTech, and he said he wanted to prepare for UPSC. I said, "There's 4 years. Why are you in such a hurry?" He said, "No, so I want to do well. I couldn't go into an IIT and so on." So I said, "Okay, let's start whether you're really capable, right?" I said, "Start studying from El Basho." Okay, so that's something. Then the other thing I told him that is that if you can't come first in your, so Jaya, if you can't come first in BSc, you definitely gonna have trouble preparing for civil services. So one thing I always encourage my students to do is stop their exams in your college, right? Indirectly it helps. Okay, right? That's one thing. Okay, try to be very regular in your habits, right? Try to have 100% attendance. That's something that I also ask all my students, right? If they're preparing for civil services, I say, if you were bunking here, how are you going to work 24 cross 7 days a week, right? These days, in COVID times, I know of my students and my friends who are in the civil services. They have not really had a holiday for the last 40 days or so, right? So that's another thing that I think everybody shouldn't be in mind. So make yourself a little uncomfortable. Like when you're doing 6 hours, try to look for 8. If you have completed one book or one topic a day, try to push it to 1.5, right? Try to push yourself to study a little bit more every day, and that is very, very important. The final thing that you need to do while preparing is to have a feedback, okay, or have a mentor or somebody like that. So the feedback channel loop can be of various methods. So first is the objective type practice tests. So try to check. So first thing is you have to be very honest. Do not guess too much, but try to understand the fact that guessing is secondary, but trying to remember as much as is important, and trying to develop a logic is more important in objective type as well in writing means. So try to actually have solve questions objective type and so on. Okay, try to test yourself very regularly. Try to join a proper test series, written and mains, right? Both, right? Prelims as right. Prepare, right? Do not okay, even in the interview phase, right? Even if you have cleared prelims and mains, right? I would say still prepare very, very thoroughly for your interview, right? Get a mentor, get a person who can actually help you out to score higher, or get really work on your interview skills, work on your way of talking, work on your way of listening to people, right? Because and that's really, really important. Okay, so try to actually have a lot of feedback, and so remember, any kind of criticism you should be very, very happy taking, as long as it's in the right spirit, that is to improve you. So if anybody wants to criticize you, that's fine, but ask them for suggestions. Ask them for suggestions. Make them the person, right? Let's say some auntie bua, and they say that civil services to hota hi nahi, kisi ka prepare karne se kya fayda hai, tumhara nahi hoga. Let's say that's kind of an assertion made by somebody, you're some friend, So ask them, right? Okay, so what do you think? So do you know of somebody who has cleared? Can you help me get in touch with him? What do you think is the right way of studying? How much should I study? Right? They will say, okay, nahi, bahut बार 15 पढ़ना, 16 घंटे पढ़ना पड़ता है, and so on. So ask them, okay, how do I study for 16 hours? Do you have any methodology for doing that? Okay, try to ask them questions, right? Do not get the negativity, because see, it's all of them really don't know about civil services, right? They don't have, even if they have prepared, they might have prepared badly. Okay, Even if somebody has succeeded, he might not know his own methodology of succeeding. It's only a person who has observed the person maybe can actually really realize. Like most of my IS friends really don't know how they cleared, except for the fact they really studied. Okay, I really don't know, and they really because we have a lot of friends who are really intelligent, they didn't make it. So both ways is there, right? So the argument is, whether it's luck, right, whether it's something else, right? What is the design? Most people don't know, right? So that's not a problem, right? So what is important is what you think is right, and you have to stuck to your guns and actually be very regular. So the idea is that you have to be consistent. Finally, quarantine is a place time of anxiety, right, and depression. A lot of people will have anxiety, will have even have depression, will be socially anxious, would be worried all the time, right? What will happen, right? A lot of people have that mindset as well. So I would not talk about positive toxicity and why you might not be as happy or loving as you can be, right? Every person is different. Not everybody person derives enjoyment. So that's what I said. Even your ritual is actually cribbing and saying that the world wants me to fail. That's totally fine. Okay, right? So in the same way, as I said, you need to have some rest. Okay, so when you have started for so long at night, or any time in the day, right after you have hit like 8 to 20, 10 hours, you need a break. Now that break time has to be effectively utilized in different ways. Some of our students used to play video games, right? PUBG is still very famous, even despite the fact UPSC candidates are not supposed to do that, right? Some people like to do Snapchat, Instagram, etc. Though I would say that all of you stay away from social media. Social quarantine is something that is very useful in UPSC preparation, because the idea is that at the end of the day, the more you talk to people, it's a problem, because you have a lot of savers. Whatever you might do, even if you put 10 hours a day, you still feel that is not enough for a very long time. So that's another of my suggestions. The final thing I would like to show you, as a saying, rest yourself. So a lot of UPSC students have some hobbies, right? Like aquaponics. People have like to sing, like to dance, right? And here I think meditation is one thing that I think people can definitely go through, right? Different readings, right? Different other types of books, fiction, um, and I'm not sure what other hobbies you might have, but try to keep a couple of hours for that every day. Okay, and be very regular with it. So keep the consistency here, so that your day is very divided. Even cooking, for helping with chores, even if you like to do safai at your house, that's wonderful. Exercise is fine, totally on you, right? But try to keep it a very regimented time. Even if you, let's say, you are preparing and you have to cook for your family, right? Make sure that is done very segmentally and you're already prepared. Make programmed decisions, as I've talked about. Okay, so the unprogrammed decisions, something which you don't know, like what has happened this year, right? Because if you make a programmed decision for your preparation, what will happen? The unprogrammed decision that is not right now can be made more easily. Now, what can happen is UPSC can shift to, let's say, something like August this year, and the mains can happen in, let's say, December, and that would be wonderful if that does happen. This can even get pushed further, okay, or can even be earlier, let's say in June or July, right? But at the same time, your idea has to be, you have to prepare in line with something like 31st. So prepare, people who are preparing for this year's UPSC, try to keep an agenda for preparing till 31st. That's one way of thinking about it. Some people can say, why don't I put some effort on my mains papers during this time? That can be a good idea, I would say. Preparing for your essay can be a good idea this time around. Okay, right? Especially, writing an essay on the life after Corona would be wonderful, right? Before and after Corona, it would be a wonderful topic to write an essay upon. I think that would be there. Okay, any questions? Any questions that anybody would have? I think we are about to end this session. If you have any questions, do let us know. Okay, right. I think that's it from us. I think there are not any more questions. If you have, we can take them offline. Thank you so much for listening. It was wonderful talking to you all, right? Thank you so much.